Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are going to go on an adventure on the intricacies of sustainable beekeeping, what the benefits are of raw honey, and an entrepreneur's journey into an eco friendly environment. Today, we've got Tim Walker, who's the founder of the Raw Honey Shop on the Coach U podcast. And as far as I know, this is the first video interview I've seen of this reclusive founder. Is this true, Tim?
Yeah, I think so.
Welcome to the show. You've been doing
Thanks.
raw honey for over 16 years now.
Yeah, about 16 years. It goes back a bit further than that. Um, but as a sort of business, like started off with farmers markets, that sort of thing. And it seemed to be going quite well. And then sort of basically in the last 8 years, it's developed into a sort of sustainable business. But the actual story of how I got into it goes back quite a bit further.
Well, I'd love to hear the origin story.
Yeah, well, I was with my girlfriend. We were on holiday in the south of France. This is about 1998, 99. It was a really, really hot summer. It's absolutely baking. We were camping and we just couldn't sleep. And we were looking at the map. So this is before sort of sat nav and stuff. And we could see this lake over the border in Spain. So we thought, okay, let's drive there and cool off. Well, I guess we thought it would take a couple of hours, but like 7 hours later, we were high in the mountains. There's a mountain range between Spain and France called the Pyrenees. Pretty much lost actually. So we decided to bed down for the night, pulled into this little campsite and set up tent and fell to sleep. And then sort of woke up with the sun on the tent. I crawled out, bit crabby, not in a very good mood, but then crawled out and looked around and it was just this incredible place. You'd sort of got the mist sort of down below in the valley, and then up above you could see the sort of the cliffs, maybe 500 or 1,000 meters high. There are all these sort of birds circling, eagles, and then the ground was just like alive. There were all these flowers, and it was enchanting. And so I sort of called Karen my girlfriend. She sort of grunted at me in a bad-tempered way, but then she came out and saw the place, and we were both absolutely enchanted. So we decided to spend the rest of the holiday there. It's like it's right in the middle of the Pyrenees. It's way off the tourist route. It was sort of like stepping back in time, basically. And there was a little medieval town further down the valley, and we went there. And there was like a world music festival, and we had a fantastic time. Anyway, on the way back, so driving up the mountain, we stopped at this little town just virtually on the border between France and Spain. And sort of thought, well, let's get some presents to take home for people. And in this little shop with all these sort of crafts and like sort of barrels of wine and olives and cheeses, there was a shelf with honey. And I'd never really thought about honey before. Got honey from the supermarket, just thought honey, it's just honey, basically. But there are all these different varieties. So I was a bit intrigued by this. So we bought a selection. There was like oak honey, and I'd never heard of oak honey, rosemary honey, lavender, orange blossom, a few other varieties. So I bought a selection and put them in the boot of the car, sort of forgot about them for a while, drove back to England. And then about 2 weeks later, we got them out and tried them, and it was just like I'd never tasted anything like this. I mean, it was just so different to the supermarket honey, and the flavors were incredible. So anyway, we'd sort of fallen in love with this place. So we started going back every year, and we were bringing more and more of this honey, like presents for people. And one day, sort of Karen said, "Why don't we try and sell it at a farmer's market?" So we did that. There was quite a bit of interest, and then this was about sort of 2008 or so. And so then I sort of got a website built, and it sort of took off from there. And we just started going to all these sort of organic fairs and stuff, and discovering new beekeepers. And that was kind of the beginning, but it was just like it was a whole new world to me.
Tim, what were some of the initial challenges you faced when you were establishing the raw honey shop?
Um, like just when you're sort of starting out in business, and I didn't know much about websites. And we got a website built, but it wasn't a Shopify site or anything. So that was quite difficult. And sort of challenges of getting the product into the country. Unfortunately, Karen, my partner, became very ill. And then she passed away sort of in 2014. So my mind was off the business a bit. Various friends sort of helped out. But I sort of take my eye off the ball, and unfortunately, quite often friends aren't the best people to help out. And I ended up in a situation where I got sort of 4 people working for me who were basically completely unsuitable. So that was holding the business back. And it was around this sort of time that I got in touch with Perry Marshall. So I joined one of his mastermind groups, and basically helped me over that. And sort of basically I've got really good people now. But so they were like sort of personnel challenges were the main ones. But since those have been sorted out, the business has just sort of started to fly, really.
That's incredible. What was it that attracted you to Perry Marshall?
There's a lot of bullshit out there, basically. And he just sort of seemed genuine. And extremely intelligent.
I agree.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shortcut internet marketers who
Yeah.
think it's about one tactic instead of the core strategy components of a business, like having great personnel. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you're running a honey shop or running a tire shop. It's the same
Sure.
issue with getting the right people in place,
Absolutely.
taking
Yeah.
care of customers, and the boring parts of running a business are actually the most
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were some of the changes that you've seen as you've become kind of the raw honey man? What do your friends say? What do they think of you? Or what do they say about you?
Um, they like, because I'm quite sort of honest type of person, and I won't say something just because it will sell more product. Um, I'm quite good at sort of getting to like the core of the issue, um, spotting what needs to be done. Um, I I'm sort of fascinated by the different types of honey and discovering new types of honey, and like just getting across the story, because there's this disconnection between what people consume and where it comes from. And most of the honey in the supermarkets, it's been blended from, it's come from Argentina, it's come from China, it's come from Ukraine, it's been blended together. It just bears no resemblance to what's actually the bees actually produce. And so, just people just respect that I'm doing something that is, that is adding something to the world rather than taking away, basically.
Yeah. What an incredible adventure to be able to go to all different parts of the globe and source different types of honey and meet the beekeepers and be able to trace that experience all the way through to where your end customer is buying raw honey from you to link that together. For those of our listeners who are not familiar with raw honey, what do they need to understand?
It's just that it's honey as it was in the hive. I mean, you need to filter it a bit because you'll get like debris and the odd dead bee. But apart from that, it should be exactly as it was in the hive. And that's the way people have eaten honey throughout history. It's quite a recent thing that it's become a processed food. Um, so I think it's a bit of a challenge because the honey in the supermarket is often very cheap, but the supermarkets, they're buying it in at like a dollar a kilo or thereabouts. And you know nothing about that honey basically, apart from the fact that it's been blended, heated, put through a fine filter.
And probably a lot of that honey isn't even honey. It's got other stuff in it too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that the main producers, that what they sell, they don't actually have the capacity to produce. There aren't enough beehives. So, that is a major issue. It's an issue in the US. It's an issue in Europe, everywhere, really.
Do you think killer bees make better honey?
I really, I really don't know. Um,
I figure you're the bee expert as well. Have you been stung by a bee? Or are you afraid of being
uh,
stung by bees?
I have been stung by bees. I went for years without being stung. I used to go and visit the beekeepers, like in Greece, and often they'll walk around without any protective clothing on. I used to walk around with them. I didn't have any fear at all until last year, when I was filming some hives with the drone, and I got attacked basically, and so that's sort of that's affected my nerve basically.
What's that like if you're Tim Walker, the raw honey guy, and you get attacked by bees?
Um, it's a kind of a bit of a wake up call. Like the temperament of the bees, it depends on a lot of things. If the nectar is flowing well, then they generally um, they'll ignore you. But if it's sort of late in the season and there's less nectar, and that they're sort of getting into protective mode, then you need to be a bit more careful, and sort of different, like this sort of like the Iberian black bee, which is the ones that stung me. They're they're a bit more aggressive than the bees in Greece. So that was a lesson basically, to be a bit more careful.
Now, you visited with beekeepers all over the planet. What's been your favorite experience?
Um, Going up Mount Olympus is one of my favorite experiences. I didn't realize how massive Mount Olympus is, that it covers a big area. It has a very unique uh, ecosystem, which is partly to do with being quite close to the sea. And it gets steep very quickly, and this creates different microclimates on the mountain. So there's quite a lot of indigenous plant species that you only find there, and it creates a really unique honey. It's a guy, Demetrius, who we get his Mount Olympus forest from. That's one. There's some awards called the London Honey Awards, which are like top level awards, and that's won platinum twice in the London Honey Awards. I mean, Mount Olympus produces some incredible honeys.
I can imagine like honey for the Greek gods that'll turn me into
Yeah,
Zeus.
yeah, it is an incredible mountain. It's often shrouded in clouds. It was just such a thrill the first time I went. It just drove past, but then to actually go up Olympus with the beekeeper, that was quite an experience.
So you mentioned that there are these honey awards, or there's a honey rating system. I imagine much like rating wine or rating coffee. Can can you describe how is honey graded and rated?
Well, there's honey awards. There's also if you've come across Manuka honey, you'll know that there's different grades of Manuka depending on how antibacterial it is. So that's sort of one kind of grading system, because it was thought for a long time that like Manuka was much more antibacterial than any other honeys. But we started doing comparable tests on the honeys that we get. We've discovered that particularly the dark ones like the forest and the tree honeys are as antibacterial or more antibacterial than Manuka. But then with the taste awards, then you'll send the samples in, and they'll have maybe 10 or 15 different judges, and they all receive samples and then grade them according to like sort of the mouth feel, and then ultimately the flavor, how long the flavor lasts, and the different sort of notes you get in it, sort of similar to how you do wine tasting.
What I want to know for the honey connoisseur is, what is your favorite honey?
It changes, it changes from year to year. It depends what. At the moment, one of my favorites is called vanilla fir, which is from a kind of fir tree that only grows in one area in Greece. It's extremely thick. I mean, honey is basically made up of different sugars, mainly glucose and fructose, but other sugars as well. But vanilla fir is much lower in sugars than all other honeys, and just the flavor is just it really lasts, and it's a honey to die for. So that's my favorite at the moment. I mean, I like oak honey a lot, so it's less sweet than like a nectar. Basically, honey it comes from flower nectar, but it also comes from the sap of trees. And with oak trees, the acorns will weep a fluid, and then the bees collect that fluid and they make honey from it. That's like, the oak is one of the most antibacterial honeys that we sell, and it's got a, molasses, deep, woody. You can taste the forest basically.
Is it kind of like maple syrup in a way, or the honey tastes like whatever the bee had, the pollen of the flower?
Partly the pollen. Yeah, I mean, some may taste like maple syrup, but um, the ones that are made from tree sap, that's called honeydew. Uh, so it's like more savory, a much deeper flavor, quite strong.
Now you have a
You can feel
tribe
it
of
on the
people
back of your throat.
who are super loyal, buying raw honey from you. Why do they buy from you?
Because of the process, because I won't sell honey from someone that I haven't checked out. I don't buy it on the open market. Um, you know, Typically a beekeeper will get in touch. I'll ask him what varieties he's got. Then if it sounds interesting, I get him to send samples. We taste the samples. If they taste good, then we'll send it off to a lab to get analyzed. And then I'll probably go and visit the beekeeper, and check him or her out, to see if they fit our criteria. I prefer to buy honey that's certified organic, although not all beekeepers, it's quite an expensive process to get organic certification. So not all beekeepers are certified organic, but probably 90% of the honey is organic, and it's like, that they're checked up on, and that the certifying body will visit. They'll just turn up without warning, and check the honey and make sure the hives are in a place which isn't contaminated with chemicals from farming.
So besides,
So we've got the process, but it's the story as well. So people are fascinated by the story behind each honey.
tell us one of those stories about one of the honeys.
Well, there's a honey that we call red fir. So I was in Greece last June with Thomas, who's one of our main beekeepers. And so I'm staying in a sort of Airbnb, and he turns up like 6:30 in the morning with his uncle Stephanos. We're going to the mountain. Okay, all right. So I get in Stephanos's pickup truck, which is like, you can just smell a beekeeper's, it's like the wax and the honey. It's like it just fills you up. It's incredible. So we head off. Sort of, Thomas lives. It's a flat area, but it's surrounded by mountains. So we stop for coffee, and then we start climbing up through the mountains. Going up and up, passing through these villages with these old guys sitting out, drinking their coffee and smoking. And we sort of go over one mountain, and then we're going up another mountain, then we're going through the clouds, come through the clouds, and then we stop at this one point and look down, and like, you can just see all the mountains around, and there's a lake, I don't know, it's maybe 15, 20 kilometers away. It's just incredibly beautiful. I carry on a bit further, and then his hives. They're like in this clearing in the forest. Um, so it's completely remote. There's no one at all around. There's bears up there. So they have to put a fence around the hives because otherwise the bears will just, they just pick the hive up, shake it, um, and just eat the bees and the honeycomb and everything. So they put a fence around the hive, so that's not always successful. But so like Thomas and his uncle, they're checking all the hives, and I'm just walking around, going up into the forest. It's just there's a kind of a real purity to the place, what it's like when you're in a high mountain, and like the way sound travels, and the air is so clear. There's a few birds singing, and then I'm watching the bees, and I've been wanting to get some video of the bees actually feeding on the fir trees for years, and been trying to get the beekeepers to do it, but they're just so busy they don't have time. But anyway, I managed to get some video, like close-up video, bee actually on the fir tree. They're collecting the sap. So I was really pleased with that. So then Thomas and Stephanos, they finished their work, and then they give me a bit of honeycomb from one of the hives, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. It was kind of fruity, which you don't sort of get so much with fir honey, but sort of fruity and a bit treacly, and just like it's just like a taste explosion in your mouth, basically. Like a bomb going off, but distributing these amazing flavors, around your tongue. So yeah, we get back in the truck, and they're like, the work's done, and they're relaxing, they're putting music on, and we're just driving down the mountain. So anyway, when I got back to England, I sent some of the honey to be analyzed for its antibacterial qualities, and it came back as active 23. With Manuka, they'll talk about a 20 plus Manuka, which is like extremely potent, extremely antibacterial. So this was actually more antibacterial, and the customers I don't know how much we sold, but we can't get enough of it. And the reviews we get for it are incredible.
Just imagine if these customers could go on that mountain journey, like with you and Thomas and Stefanos and other folks, where it wasn't just the jar of honey, the end product, it's the whole
Yeah,
journey. And they could experience what that's like being up on the mountain and being
yeah,
with the fir trees. And
yeah,
even though these beekeepers are busy, you visited a lot of these people personally. You
yeah,
talked to every one of these beekeepers.
yeah.
What if you could encapsulate you could be like the Crocodile Dundee of honey, and you just
Yeah.
narrate along the way, just little videos along the way, so that people could accompany you on this experience. And
Well, I do
then when they
that.
try the honey, they get the payoff,
Yeah,
right? Then it's like they've been there with you.
yeah. I mean, I do that mainly sort of through the emails that I tell them about the honey, and I give them the links. But also, I do plan to actually take some customers with me. That's like maybe for this year, maybe this summer.
Yeah. But the pictures and the video too, not just, I mean, email's great where you can tell a story through words, but imagine
Yeah,
if they could just see a few of the pictures.
yeah,
Just the,
yeah,
like you could talk
yeah,
about the mountains and what it's like. But
yeah,
I think a couple pictures or just even a few 15-second videos would be huge.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's
yeah,
just like, well, I do a search for raw honey and there's 15 different jars of honey. They all look kind of the same, right? But you're the connoisseur who's actually visited these places and you actually
Yeah.
vet every one of these beekeepers and you
Yeah.
test the honey. That's
Yeah.
not immediately obvious when I'm doing searches for raw honey. I just see
Yeah.
the price and
Sure.
a picture of
Yeah.
the label, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You
you're
have
right
so
there.
many incredible stories that you can be telling
Yeah.
beyond just words that are in an email.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do have a lot of video. I do have a lot of video.
Well, where is it?
Um, it's not really on show as much as it should be.
Why don't you hire someone on Upwork for a couple $100 and process all
Yeah.
of it and put it on your site?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of it is on the site, but nowhere near enough.
Because I imagine these people who really care about honey, that they're not buying it from the supermarket,
Mm.
they care about those details. They
Yeah.
care about what the antibacterial measurement is, that it's 23
Yeah.
plus. They
Yeah.
care about sustainable
Yeah.
beekeeping. They care about supporting these individual beekeepers and exactly where their honey's being sourced from.
Sure. They do. Yeah. Yeah.
They're probably willing to pay a premium to know that the beekeepers that you're working with take good care of the bees.
Yeah. 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 I mean, they are prepared to pay a premium.
And I think I was checking, most of it's like 30 pounds or so. That's not incredibly expensive. That's what I would expect for something that's gourmet and higher quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I buy super high quality olive oil. That's $100 a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
health benefits associated with that versus just the regular store olive oil. And you
Sure.
even like you were telling me before about polyphenols. I thought, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. 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 So,
So, how has your perspective on food nature or sustainability changed since starting the raw honey shop?
well, I I love nature. I love being in wild places. Um, and it's sort of like raw honey versus the processed honey. Um, you know, back in the day, there'd have been a local beekeeper down the road. People would have just got their honey direct from the local beekeeper, and there is some local beekeeping, but not nowhere near enough. There's just a problem with, particularly in the UK, with industrialized farming. Um, so, for instance, since the end of the Second World War, 97% of the wildflower meadows have been lost. And there used to be a lot more beekeeping in the UK, but there's just not enough wildflowers, and like intensive agriculture has just destroyed all the meadows. And it's particularly bad in the UK, but in other countries, the Netherlands. So I like to go to these places where nature is still strong, and to encourage that sector to do all I can to support that sector and these men and women who are running these often quite sort of small operations, but getting their honey out and educating people, about the difference between raw honey and processed honey. And we get so many messages from new customers, and we never realized that this is just so different to the honey that we used to buy in the supermarkets. I mean, I guess it's small fry, but it's doing something.
We need to tell the world more. I don't know anything about
Yeah.
raw honey. For
Yeah.
me, it's all honey. So
Yeah.
where would
Well,
someone like
raw honey is
me?
just honey. It's just honey as the bees made it, not honey that's been blended and heated and put through a fine filter.
So for someone like me who wants to learn more about raw honey, where should I start?
Um, the, you, you go to Wikipedia, you know, go go to the raw honey shop, obviously. Um, do your research and try and find suppliers, in your area. Um, it's it is a growing movement. I do regard it as a movement. It is a growing movement. So the information is out there.
What advice, Tim, would you give aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start a business with a strong focus on sustainability and biodiversity and ethical practices?
Well, obviously you've got to find something that there is a market for. But I think you need to have a passion. um, and you need to be, like, to be honest, because people, there's so much sort of slippery stuff out there, and sort of people who are buying, they have a sense that this guy is going on, but often they don't see um, any other option. But I think people, they are attracted to honesty, and you admit, you admit mistakes, and you you don't, these products like raw honey, or extra virgin olive oil that is high in polyphenols. These products, they sort of sell them sell themselves. But you really need to go, you need to go to the source. I think that's, maybe that's the most important thing. You've got to 100% trust your own source.
And by tracing all the way to the source, because you've personally done that and documented that, you are
Yeah,
the eyes and ears of your customers because they trust you.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
they don't have time to do this level of investigation.
No.
They need someone who's put in 20 years of their life and
Yeah,
has
yeah,
become the expert.
yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. So, what else do people need to know about the Raw Honey Shop or Tim Walker?
Well, they can find us on the internet if they want to call us up. We like to speak to our customers. We encourage customers to call up, um, to email us. We're at the rawhoneyshop.com. They can phone us. Bear in mind that we're in the UK, so if you're in the US or elsewhere, then there might be quite a time difference. But GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, we're there answering the phone from like 9:30 to 5:30. But just like email Tim at the rawhoneyshop.com, um, you know, and visit the site.
And Tim, thanks for staying up late for being on my
Oh,
podcast.
no problem.
It
Thank
was an
you.
honor. I've learned so much about honey. I admire your experience and dedication and
Thank you.
honesty in promoting something that you believe in, that you've traced all the way to the source,
Yeah,
and for being a part of Planet Perry and honest marketers who think strategically, who
yeah,
know that it's the connections and trust and reputation that you build over time
yeah.
in running a sustainable business that we can all be proud of.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to see you in Chicago next month.
Yeah, see you there.
Can you bring some honey?
I will bring some honey. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe we can make a 1 minute video where we can
Yeah, for
sample.
sure.
But you don't have
Yeah.
little samplers, do you? Like tiny little jars of honey?
I can bring some. Yeah, I can
Hopefully
bring
they
some.
let you through that at TSA. I don't, does that count as a liquid gel or, or if it's 3 ounces or less, maybe it's okay.
If it's in my
In your
if it's in
suitcase.
the
Oh, if you
hold, it
check
should
it.
be all right. Yeah.
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 Awesome. Well, appreciate you, Tim.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
I want to see businesses like yours thrive because it's people like you that are not the over the top marketers that are making big promises
Mm,
that deserve to win.
mm,
And because of social media, the people who tend to be more aggressive and
mm.
eccentric and what's the word, flamboyant in their
Yeah.
marketing, as opposed to the people who are quiet and well researched like you, they people like you are often getting drowned out with this whole social media thing. And I want to see that shift
Yeah.
by seeing people like you tell their stories in an authentic way without you feeling like you need to sing or dance or
Yeah.
be on
Yeah.
social media, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in general, people are desperate for connection. And in many places, it's so real, genuine connection is lacking. You go to a website, you've got a bit of an issue, you can't find a phone number, there's not an email address. It's obvious, eventually you may find one and you email, you don't hear anything back. In the old day, people, they go into their corner shop, they, chat with the owner of the shop. And, we're social beings. We need connection, proper connection, not, you know, it's like, not to be treated in this disrespectful way by someone who's running, it's like it's a money making machine, but there's no humanity behind it.
Well, I admire you for that. You're bringing back the old time shopkeeper, someone I can ask questions of
In a
instead of
way,
like
yeah, in a way,
some random call center or some AI bot that's answering my question.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll always, we won't have a bot. We'll always speak directly to the customers.
Well, Tim, you get the last word. What would you like to say?
Well, that was kind of what I just said, was like, one of my my bugbears, and it's just, you know having connection, um honesty, um and giving people the whole story behind what you're doing, so they can really feel a part of it. um
And be informed.
yeah, be informed.
So they
Yeah,
understand what the health benefits are.
yeah,
So they understand the impact on
yeah,
the planet and what you're
yeah,
doing to help these bee populations that are being challenged globally and to tell the
yeah,
stories of these beekeepers and what it's like being on Mount Olympus.
yeah, yeah.
I can imagine I mean, I could have ChatGPT generate an image of that, but I don't think it'd be the same as the real thing.
No, no, it wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, we haven't touched on the problem with the bees, but it is a lot to do with is climate change, but also a lot to do with industrial farming and the sort of pesticides. And in the US, where the bees are trucked thousands of miles to the almond farms on the west coast, and the chemicals that are used there, and um, it's it's killing bees, and it's just disastrous.
And it's killing humans too,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we're not eating the healthiest of foods and we're
yeah,
not
yeah,
being connected to the source of
yeah,
where the food is coming from,
yeah, for
being
sure.
connected to nature.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for being on the
Well,
Coach Hugh
thank
Show.
you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Give me a spot. Thank you.
And we'll see you in Chicago in a few weeks.
Yeah, see you there. All
All
right.
right.
Thanks,
Well, thank
Dennis.
you, my friend.
All right. Thanks.